Guys, welcome back to Southern Extreme TV. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on my channel. Today we're going to be talking about what I believe to be the best coyote hunting rifle that's ever been built. So as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me on my channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are trying to grow this thing to 100,000 subs. Obviously, the title of this video is going to be extremely opinionated. There are a lot of fantastic rifles and fantastic predator hunting rifle options out there on the market. Some that work for certain people may not work for others. Some that are the best for some people may be the worst for other people. So again, go into this video kind of subjectively. I want to talk about, why I think that this rifle is the best rifle that I have personally ever shot for predators. I want to talk about kind of why I think that, what goes into that, some of the stats or maybe the specs or facts that I'm using to kind of support that theory. But again, what this rifle is may not be perfect for you, but for me and Guffey and what we found and what we've been running, there's a lot of advantages to this specific rifle. And I kind of want to dive into it and really talk about it. So without further ado, let's talk about my coyote hunting rifle. This is the NightStalker Precision AR-10 6.5 Creedmoor, decked out in all carbon fiber stuff. So let's kind of go through the build components first, because I know some people want to know exactly what all goes into this, and maybe why I chose certain specific components over others. So kind of working my way from the front all the way down to the back, and I'm going to circle back to the suppressor at the end of it. But barrel wise, we're running a 24-inch proof barrel. Handguard, we're running a Smoke Composites carbon fiber barrel, or carbon fiber handguard. So you've got a carbon fiber barrel, you've got a carbon fiber handguard. We're using a NightStalker Precision proprietary AR-10 lower, and it's going to be in this kind of ghost gray, matte gray looking color. Back here at the stock, this is also a Smoke Composites carbon fiber buttstock. Now on the buttstocks, you can go with a wide range of different options. You've got some that are collapsible. Guffey actually runs one, a very similar, basically everything's the exact same setup. He just has a collapsible stock on the back side of his. I prefer to not have the collapsible stock, mainly because I'm not running into situations where my length of pull is going to change that drastically. Usually my optic, once I put it on there, my eye relief is going to stay the exact same, and I prefer a stationary stock because there's less play, or there's actually no play, because all this is one piece. What you find with an adjustable stock is there can be a little bit of wiggle in that actual stock, where there's just enough play where you can make those adjustments. And sometimes having that little extra play, some people don't like that. I'm one of those people that I prefer a fixed stationary stock. I just think that it feels more stable, in my opinion. Down here to the grip, we run a Hogue grip. Now if you want to go completely carbon fiber with everything, Smoke Composites does make a full-blown carbon fiber handguard. I think MDT also makes a carbon fiber handguard that you see on their Hunt 26 chassis. So all of those will work on this exact same AR-10, but I prefer the Hogue grips just because it's a rubberized textured grip. It's easier to grab and hold and get in and out of the vehicle, and it doesn't get quite as cold as some of the full carbon fiber stuff. So it's just a little more comfortable to carry whenever you're actually out in the field in some colder environments. For the trigger, we are running TriggerTech Diamond triggers. Now this is either the TriggerTech Diamond Rough or just a pure TriggerTech Diamond. I think Mark, which is the owner of NightStalker Precision, big fan of the TriggerTech Diamond stuff. And to be honest with you, this is probably the 8th, 6th, or 7th gun that Mark Downing has done with NightStalker Precision. And every rifle, whether it be a bolt action or an AR rifle, we're running these TriggerTech Diamond triggers in there. And I'm telling you, trying to go from running this trigger back to running a different trigger, you can tell a difference. At first, you're kind of like, well, I don't know if I need to make that big of an adjustment in a trigger, but I'm telling you, it is absolutely well worth it. So, the scope on this is an iRay RH50R. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that this is the absolute best thermal on the market. It is a thermal that I've really enjoyed running. There's a lot of great thermals out there. This checks a lot of boxes for me. It can probably not check a lot of boxes for some of the other people out there. But again, this is just one to go through just for the holistic build. That is the thermal that I'm running. Now for the suppressor on the end of this, me and Guffey are both running the PTR Vent 1s. Now this is a 3D printed titanium suppressor. Originally, me and Guffey were just running some cheaper Omega 300 DTMs. Fantastic suppressors, workhorse suppressor, very budget friendly. But we went hunting with Mark Downing 2 years ago, I believe, and Mark was actually running one of these PTR Vent 1s when they first hit the market. And when we heard him shoot a Coyote, me and Guffey both were just blown away at how extremely quiet this PTR Vent 1 is. As soon as we heard it, we said, that's exactly what we're gonna make a switch to. And this season, we made a switch to the PTR Vent 1, and I promise you, there's going to have to be something crazy come to the market for me to want to switch from this PTR Vent 1. The amount of noise reduction that we're getting out of this thing is by far the best thing that I've ever heard. Best suppressor on the market, hands down, from a noise reduction standpoint. A++++. If you're thinking about wanting to get the best suppressor, this right here is it. So that right there is pretty much the entire build as far as the components go. Now let's talk about maybe some of the reasoning or rationales as to why I believe that this specific gun and setup is the best that I've run, and kind of why that is. So first of all, let's talk about the caliber. So there's a lot of hate around the 6.5 Creedmoor, and being very open and realistic to a lot of different calibers on the market, I think that the 6.5 Creedmoor is one of the best rounds out there at doing what it was designed to do. It is designed to be a high BC bullet, so it's designed to be very stable at longer distances. And what I prefer, or what I like about the 6.5 Creedmoor probably more than anything, is it, in my opinion, is one of the most versatile rounds that is out there. And what I mean by that is you can shoot a 95 grain VMAX, which is what we're actually shooting out of this gun. We're shooting a 95 grain VMAX for our Predators. But you can also ramp this thing up all the way to I think even 140 grain bullet if you want to shoot something that heavy, or a 129 grain bullet, and you can go after whitetail deer, you can go after hogs, you can go after a wide range of larger game, and that just gives you the ability to hunt a wide range of animals on this one platform. So yes, I think the 95 grain VMAX is probably the best bullet for straight hunting coyotes out of the 6.5 Creedmoor, but you have the ability, because you go with the 6.5 Creedmoor, to run a different bullet depending on your hunting situation. Now the 6.5 Creedmoor, it does lack, in my opinion, on that heavy knockdown power when you start getting into some larger game like elk, maybe even some mule deer, things along those lines. Though the 6.5 Creedmoor paired with the right bullet will definitely get enough penetration and definitely kill those animals, I think that there's some better cartridges out there on the market for doing that specific task. But again, we're talking about a predator hunting, varmint hunting rifle, and what makes it the best. I think the 6.5 Creedmoor gives you so much leniency that, to me, it checks off so many boxes, because you're throwing a 95 grain bullet. If you choose to go with the 95 grain VMAX, which I highly recommend, I can push that bullet at right at 3,300 FPS. This gun right here with the Vent 1 suppressor is running about it's running about 3,295 FPS is what I actually have put in my ballistic calculator for this scope, and that's with I believe over 150 round average through a Garmin chronograph machine. So that's a very accurate, kind of well-rounded average, if you will, of what you can expect to get with a 24-inch barrel and the 95 grain VMAXs. The reason that that's a big deal, two things. It is a flat shooting bullet. So from 0 to 200, I'm dead hold. At 300, I am barely holding at the top of that animal's back, if not directly below, just under his spine. So that's a very small margin of error. Whenever we get into a situation where coyotes are kind of running stupid, I don't have to worry so much about exactly what that range is until they start getting at about that 350 and beyond range. Once they get past 350, I really need to start knowing exactly what that range is so I know exactly where I need to hold. There are some other flatter shooting bullets out there. Let's talk about like the 22-250, like the 224 Valkyrie. A lot of really fast shooting guns that maybe give you a 0 to 250, 0 to 300 range or holdover that's maybe better than the 95 grain VMAX, but they're doing that and achieving that with a lot lighter weight bullet. And what happens with that is your margin of error from anchoring that Coyote in his tracks becomes smaller. Because I'm throwing a 95 grain VMAX at him, I can get away with a little worse shot placement and still have enough kinetic energy throwing that 95 grain VMAX at almost 3,300 FPS. I've got a bigger range or a bigger circle of knockdown versus a smaller, lighter weight 55 grain to 65 or even a 75 grain bullet. And to me, that's the one negative that I've seen with the 243 is even though I can still shoot a VMAX out of the 243 and get very similar FPS muzzle velo, the problem is I'm shooting, I believe, a 70 or 75 grain bullet versus a 90 or 95 grain bullet. If I can burn very similar powder charges but push a 95 grain bullet very similar to the same speed as a 70 or 75 grain bullet, I would rather hit them with the 95 grain bullet versus the 70 or 75 grain bullet because that's going to carry more kinetic energy downrange. It's also going to be more stable in the wind at longer distances. So that's the reason why I landed on the 6.5 Creedmoor, because it's so versatile. It does a lot of things really well for what the 6.5 Creedmoor was designed to do. Be accurate, be fast, have a high BC, and just be an all-around great cartridge for varminting and hunting and shooting in general. So that's the reason that I landed on the 6.5 Creedmoor. Now let's talk about maybe the difference or the rationale behind why I didn't go with a bolt gun or why this video is not revolving around a bolt gun and is revolving around a semi-auto. The semi-auto is great for exactly what a semi-auto is great for. It's designed to shoot fast. It is designed to have very quick follow-up shots. Where the semi-auto is going to fall short versus a bolt action is going to be in the noise reduction category. Because it is a gas gun and because you are opening this chamber every shot, it is going to be louder than what a bolt action gun is going to be, that is going to be collapsing and compressing all those gases inside of your chamber. So yes, the bolt action is going to be quieter than the semi-auto. However, the decibel reduction between the two is very minute. It's not enough for me to really jeopardize or want to throw away the quick follow-up shot aspect of the AR platform rifle over the bolt action. Now for some of you guys that's hunting in some big wide open areas, the semi-auto versus bolt action may not be that big of a deal to you, or maybe even you're hunting in a state where you can't use a semi-auto, you have to run a bolt gun. I still think that you can run everything else exactly the same and still have that 6.5 Creedmoor with the 24-inch barrel, but just have it on a bolt action platform. For us, we do not hunt very wide open places. So being in a situation to where we may only have a field that's 100 yards wide, if we get multiple coyotes that come in and we make that first shot, I want a semi-auto rifle so that I can stay on target and I can put 1, 2, possibly even 3 follow-up shots on those second or maybe third or fourth dogs as they're leaving that field. And all that does is it gives me the opportunity to possibly put more fur in the back of my truck. So I think the semi-auto for us and where we're at and the situations that we're in, I think that the semi-auto shines a little bit better, more so than what the bolt action does, where we would have to manually rack each one of those shells. Also, the positive behind that is you do get the ability to run a 20-round magazine, obviously depending on your state and where you are from. There's a lot of Second Amendment states that are going against this, where they're trying to limit you to 10 rounds or 5 rounds. But for right now, being able to run a 20-round mag gives me a lot of firepower behind this thing in case you do get into a situation where things are a little hairy and you need to shoot more than 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. It's always nice to have that backup. Guffey's going to fight me on that because he thinks his gun looks better with the 10 round mag. The 20 round mag though is way more practical because I get to carry more bullets out into the field. I don't care what he says. So that's the reasoning, the argument behind the caliber. That's the argument behind the style of rifle between a bolt action versus a semi-auto. Let's talk about kind of the pricing and why everything is kind of carbon fiber and almost built over the top, if you will. The reason behind that is just pure weight reduction. Now, I do want to say that I think there is a finite line that you want to walk between being too lightweight and being too heavy. I believe that a gun can be too light, and I believe that a gun can be too heavy as well. And what I mean by that is if you're getting in and out of the vehicle all night long from sundown to sunup, lugging a big 15, 20, 25 pound rifle in and out of the vehicle, walking through the field, that can just be exhausting. However, the pro to that is your shots can be very, very stable behind a heavier rifle. The heavier the rifle, typically the easier it is to stay on target and to hold it steady. And then also your recoil is felt less on a heavier rifle versus a lighter rifle. Now with a lighter rifle, lugging it in and out of a vehicle 20, 30, 40 sets a night from sundown to sunup, uses very little energy. It's a lot more pleasant to carry in and out of the woods. However, it does make holding that rifle steady more difficult. The lighter the gun, the harder it is to hold steady. The other thing about a lighter weight rifle is the amount of felt recoil is going to be generally felt more in a lighter weight rifle versus a heavier rifle. And that's just pure physics. How much force, if you have the exact same bullet, the exact same powder charging, it is going to feel like a less recoil pushing 20 pounds back versus pushing 8 pounds back. So to me, I like to find that happy medium in the weight of my rifle. Now with that being said, when you start talking about a nighttime predator hunting rifle, when you're adding a thermal optic that's going to weigh over 2 pounds, you're adding a battery pack, you're adding a suppressor, you're adding a 20 round mag, you're putting a 24-inch barrel on this thing, all of those components start adding up in weight. So yes, though my bare bone rifle with none of this stuff on it is coming in at around 7 pounds, that's right, about a 6.5 to 7 pound AR-10 rifle with a 24-inch barrel, even though when I start adding all this stuff up, I'm gonna get up around that 10 pound range to 10.5 pounds, but that's okay because that's a completely furnished, completely decked out rifle. And I have found that that kind of 10 pound range is that perfect medium between a super heavy rifle and a super, super light rifle. But you can't get to that complete 10 to 10.5 pound range if you don't start out with a very, very light rifle to begin with. Now, if you're not going to be running thermal imaging optics, or you're not going to be running a suppressor, and you're not going to be running a battery pack, then you can actually save some cost on this rifle build and go with a steel barrel, go with a regular metal handguard, go with a non-carbon fiber buttstock, and kind of still get to that happy medium of weight reduction while still getting all the pros and cons of everything else that this rifle build has going on for it. So you've kind of got to take that information and do with it what you want. For me, we hunt long hours. I've got a really nice suppressor. I've got battery packs. I've got a big thermal on here. I've carried a 20 round magazine. All of that stuff is adding up on weight. So I really wanted this gun to be as lightweight from the start, from the first initial build, before I put ammo, scope, or suppressor or batteries on it. I want it to be as light as possible because I knew I was going to get up there in weight. And to me, it is that perfect balanced medium for going out, being able to take longer distance shots, and just being an overall really good shooting rifle. So we've kind of checked off a lot of boxes. Let's talk about just the pure accuracy behind this gun. And although there's some stigma, or I guess a persona out there, that semi-auto rifles are not as accurate as bolt action rifles. And I'm gonna say that for the most part, that statement is true in a grand scheme, big scale production overall basis. But when you start talking about a very high-end premium AR-10 build, that kind of gets thrown out of the water, because you could take a gun like this right here on an AR-10 platform that is built to very high quality specs and put it up against like a Ruger American or a Savage Axis, something along those lines, and this gun is going to outshoot that. Just because it's a bolt action does not mean that it's going to be more accurate than what this semi-auto is. There's some guns that like certain bullets better than others. There's some guns that just shoot better than others. With this rifle here, and I'm going to overlay some footage of what some of the best 3-round groups that I've gotten out of this gun. It's very difficult for me to show you guys a true representation of what the accuracy is on this rifle, mainly because we're running a thermal imaging scope. For those of you that do not know, it is very difficult to go out and shoot a gun with a thermal optic and give you guys an accurate representation of what the best groupings are of that rifle. But I can tell you this, with this thermal, with this gun, with this suppressor, and with these bullets, I can put 3 holes touching at 100 yards, which is sub MOA. I'm averaging about 0.5 to 0.65 MOA out of this semi-auto rifle. Some of my most accurate bolt guns are averaging the exact same MOA groupings. All of my most accurate bolt guns are NightStalker precision rifles. One is a 7mm PRC. Now I do have some other rifles out there that are not NightStalker precision that are very, very accurate. I've got a Springfield Waypoint 2020 that in a 308 that is a super accurate rifle, 0.75 to 0.65 MOA all day long. But for the most part, the most accurate bolt action rifle that I own is my 7mm PRC that was also built by NightStalker Precision, and I can average about 0.5 MOA out of it as well. This gun right here will group the 95 grain VMAXs in that 0.5 to 0.65 range all day, every day. And sometimes I don't do my job, and that's not necessarily a representation of the rifle, that's a representation of the shooter, not the gun itself. So the fact that you can get sub MOA out of a semi-auto AR-10 on a consistent basis using a lighter weight bullet is a big deal. Now the 6.5 Creedmoor is really designed to shoot a little bit heavier of a bullet. The 129 grain bullet, in my opinion, is one of the most accurate sized bullets that a 6.5 Creedmoor will shoot. Some of my best groupings out of a 6.5 Creedmoor came with the 129 grain bullet. The 95 grain bullet, because it's so dang fast, you really have to stabilize that bullet at an early basis when it's coming out of the barrel to get really good accurate groups. And a lot of that is dependent on the contour and the twist of your barrel. So when you're building a rifle like this and you're talking to somebody like Mark Down, and let him know what bullets you're wanting to shoot or what you're wanting to run out of it, and then you can get the contour, the twist ratio inside this barrel to match what your end goal, end objective is. So fantastic overall dealings right here, guys. And I've been running this gun now for an entire year, and I really wanted to wait to do this video because we actually had I'm going to call it a first revision rifle where Southern Extreme TV partnered with NightStalker Precision. And the very first revision or first version, if you will, of it that we did was a shorter barrel, little different receiver set, little different stock here. For the most part, everything else was kind of the same, but just there was some couple minor things that we tweaked in the second version, which is what we've got here. And the second version checked a lot of boxes off that I believe that the first version we did with NightStalker Precision, that one didn't have. You know, the longer barrel, the reason behind the longer barrel is I wanted that bullet to be a little bit faster muzzle velo for when we're traveling out of state, taking some farther shots. So we went from a 20-inch barrel to a 24-inch barrel. We changed the suppressor out. We changed the receiver set out. One thing that we did on this stock is we made the stock shorter. So I believe the last rifle build that I had, this was actually their long stock. And the problem with that is just pure eye relief when you're trying to shoot a thermal. Having a shorter length of pull is better because not all thermals come with a really good eye relief like this RH50R does. So that was one thing that I wanted to do was shorten this up, which I'm glad that we did. We added a longer handguard on this one. I believe one of the earlier ones on my 20-inch gun, we had a shorter handguard. I like the longer handguard just because it covers a lot of the components. It covers the barrel, protects all that a little bit easier, and it just gives you more M-lock slots all the way through. So there was a lot of things that we changed from the kind of first version that we had that maybe you've seen early on with NightStalker Precision and SETV to get to where we're at now. And right now I have no complaints whatsoever about this rifle. A lot of times I can go through and I can find some small nitpicky type things with a rifle, but I believe because we spent some time in that very first build running the gun, figuring the gun out, and then going back to the drawing board and starting with this rifle, to me, we checked all those boxes, and I've been super happy and really pleased with this rifle build. So if you guys are in the market, you're looking for in your opinion, the perfect coyote hunting rifle, you need to check out NightStalker Precision and reach out to Mark Downen, the owner of the company. Fantastic guy. And again, I want to go back to saying that this gun right here may not be the best build for you guys because maybe your situation is a little bit different than what mine is, but he can help you build the perfect rifle for what you are needing in your certain situation. So reach out to him, let him know you've seen this video, and if you've got any questions about the build that maybe I didn't go over, drop a comment down below. I'll try to answer that any way that I can, and try to find somebody to help us answer the question if I don't know it. So really appreciate you guys hanging out with me on my channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to grow this family as big as we can get it, and I will see you guys on the next episode.